Hi there. I am Nu-Trix, and today we're looking into a new synthesizer, well, software synthesizer from Cherry Audio. This is a virtual Korg PS-3300. What? Yeah, you might not know what the PS-3300 is, but when you learn about it, you get awestruck. It's just amazing what this synthesizer was, and for the few that are still left are still today. I don't want to say it's a beast, but let's say it's a monster of a synth. This was before microchips were something that we could have in synthesizers. And this synthesizer is basically three different polysynth into one single unit that can play up to 48 notes of polyphony. An analog synthesizer playing up to 48 notes of polyphony. I'm going to let this sink in. You can imagine the cost of this today. It's just mind-boggling that this even exists. The PS, just so you know, from Korg, PS series was for polyphonic synthesizer, whereas the MS, like the MS-20, was monophonic synthesizer. So the PS-3300 is just a massive synthesizer. There was less than 50 unit made. Is just a beast. I have to say it. So, of course, most of us mortals will never see one in the flesh, even not own one or play one. So, the second best thing to do is to have a virtual version of it. And that's what Cherry Audio did. We have now the access to the full blown synthesis of the original PS-3300 from Korg. But, of course, like any good modern version, they added to it and they did something not like the original because certain knobs work certain ways. And it's because at that time it was a more efficient way to do because of all the wiring and the limits that today we don't have, or we went beyond these limits. And in the virtual world, the knob had no logical purpose anymore, or it was very hard to implement in this. I'll show you the differences, but most of us don't really care because we never saw the original. So it's like, oh, it's not like the original. Like, I don't know. I never saw one. So think of the Poly Synth 3300 like a massive three polysynth into one box that can play. In this case, the virtual one does not play 48. It's just too massive, and it will probably cripple your CPU. It can play up to 24 notes, which is more than what I need, and it's a very powerful synth. The cool thing about it, it's a, I would say, semi-modular synthesizer. If you know any type of the Korg, the original analog Korg series of the MS-20. If you ever played with one or a clone or a virtual version, you will understand really rapidly all of these knobs and names and ways of connecting that it exists in this one. It's basically from the same era with the same logic behind them. Let's actually dive in. The whole screen is basically, you've got three sections of, I would say, the whole synthesis into one box. You have it here, 1, 2, 3, and then you've got this master or main or combination section that is at the hard right. You also have, like any of the other Cherry Audio synthesizers, you've got the focus. You can actually focus on one section. It's easy to see. Let's just do a tour of one of these signal generator section. You'll see that it's basically 3 times exactly the same thing. So the first one, you have the generator here. So you have here the sawtooth, rec, pulse width with the pulse width. and the triangular mode. So all of these different wave shape, that traditional analog wave shape, you have the intensity of the pulse width, and you can actually decide where it's coming from. You can actually change the pitch. Okay. When double click on something, type in 0, enter, goes back to 0. The scale, classic stuff. Okay. You have the low pass filter, the peak. Now the PS synth, the PS filter is, I would say, smooth, nice, clean. It's not aggressive, it's round. You see? With the peak at the maximum. Just a round, nice sound. But the nice people from Cherry Audio added the option of going MS. The aggressive sound. Of the MS filter, whereas the PS is just a nice round sound. So if you get the option of having both of them, you can switch, and because you have 3 of these, well, 1, 2, and 3, you can have maybe one with the MS, one with the PS filter, and combine it the way you want. So really cool about that. It's always a low pass filter, not an high pass, low pass, okay, which is the basic stuff you have in any type of subtractive synthesis. You've got the filter balance, so you can actually go up or down like this. Okay. You have the envelope modulator. So this is how much, like, it's the modulation amount coming from the envelope. You have it here. You got an attack, decay, sustain, release, and velocity amount. So if we bring that down, some decay time. At the maximum. Just a nice sounding. Now you've got also the keyboard assign here. Do you want it to be polyphonic or monophonic, high priority, low priority, or the last note priority? So it depends on how you want the keyboard to respond in this case. Amplitude modulation. So this comes into all the modulation you have at the bottom here. Let's go back to that after. You've got, this is interesting. You've got all these different options of controlling or patching. You've got the signal out here, and you've got these controllers at the bottom here. You get the out, in. If you click on one, it shows you where you can connect. So these are input. You can take from these output, but also from another oscillator. So you can have one part of another oscillator modify the first oscillator. It's not a fully modular synth because there's some stuff I wish I would be able to control. It's not there, but it's enough to, I mean, it's not just enough, it's plenty to create a cool sound. You have this section of resonator, which is kind of interesting. Now we hear it modified because we have the modulation here active. Turn it off. So basically these are filter point or cutoff or peak filters with resonators. So the peak is at the maximum. So we hear that. So you can really tune the frequency you want, and you can also add some modulation. So by the MG is modulation generator. So you have these modulation generator here. Basically, these are LFOs. You have MG1 here. It's a full-blown LFO. The different waveform you have here is it sync to tempo. I think this was not in the original. You have the frequency of the speed, so basically how fast it's going to modulate. This is not what we hear. We hear MG2, which is this one here. Or this one, if you want to create something with this one, we'll go and say, instead of envelope, they're really quick to create stuff that is really cool. I like the sound of it. It's just analog sounding, you know, cool. These here are how you want to affect the modulation to the part that is on top of it. So in this case, if you activate this, you're going to use the modulation generator one, so this one here, or the external. So whatever you patch in here will be modulating the filter that is on top, or you switch it here and then you're using the envelope. Now the envelope is controlling it. So that's how you approach this. And the external, well, could be something else. It could be from another modulation generator here. You're combining the two modulation before you send it to this one. Let's go back to this one, just so you have, this one is for the pitch. And this one is the intensity control. So it could be from, let's say, this one here. Or for the pulse width modulation, go right here. Okay, so you have all of these. Can you actually tune it? You can tune each of the notes to a different synth if you want. So interesting and very analogish in a sense. And you can do that separately for each of the three of them. So really interesting, really powerful. All of these, you combine them at the end into this section, which is the mixer, effect, and kind of processor. So you've got the mixer here, the three different sounds are here, you have the volume of each of them. You can pan them left and right. You can also control their volume. So if you send an LFO to this and to, you know, to all of these, you're gonna get these. After that, you've got, again, external level control. Something else can control the VCA of the total. So you can have a tremolo here, a vibrato, tremolo here. But then you've got these little controls here. You've got the sample and hold. So you can send something in to be sampled and then SNH, LFO kind of, and then having the clock control when it's going to chop the information and output this to a different section. So we've got the input here for the sample and hold, input for the clock to say this is where we want it to change, and the output here can be assigned to where you want to control it. So we can have these weird, let's say I'm going to send it to the input here, change this as the speed to control the clock, and the output will send it to the external for the filter. Want it to be faster. That's it. That's how it works. Same logic here, general envelope generator. So there's another envelope here. We've got attack, release, and you can have the output sent to different places. So you can use this to control, let's say, the envelope here of the volume and have different envelopes. Let's say you want this to be lower, softer. You can have a different way of having this to react, and it can be triggered different ways. So you can actually say the velocity out or the gate out to trigger these at separate different points. And then we get processor. So whatever you send into these, you can control the amount of movement. So if you find that the movement of the LFO is too wide, or the range is too wide, you could limit the analog circuit electricity here coming out and then send that to another destination. So this is basically processing. So this is a cool way to get into modular without getting too deep into modular. And then the last section is really cool. You've got access to reverb and chorus and echo. You've got, and I don't think these were in the original ones. I would be surprised to. You get spring, plate, and galactic. Spring, plate, and galactic. I'm pretty sure that the galactic one was not in there. I'm not even sure that these effects was part of the original. I'm not sure that there were analog effects in this. But now again, because these are with controls, you can send an envelope, an LFO, or something else right into this and use it part of the real-time modulation that you have into the sound of it. Let's listen to some of the sounds. The sound I made. The 3 sound playing, and this one is controlled by the speed of the second one, and you've got these little controls here. again, Cherry Audio, a good sounding, massive synth, and the amount of connection is really interesting. I don't know if there is. I didn't find it, but I wish there was a way to send stuff from another synth into this using kind of the virtual patching. That'd be super cool. I'm going to have to dig into that. Until then, stay safe, make more music, and see you soon. Cheers.